Hi there, Angus from AngusDriving.co.uk here. We're going to have a quick look at temporary traffic lights, which I've got a perfect setup, a good example here. So we've got temporary traffic lights in a housing estate here, so obviously the traffic lights are temporary. So sometimes they're set up nicely, sometimes they're not. So we're coming along and they're red. We've got to think about where we're going to stop here. Now sometimes they'll have put a sign saying when red, stop here, and they have, but it's fallen over, it looks like, on the left. But you'd be careful here that you don't go over the junction. So yeah, we're going to make sure that we stop here so we're not blocking that junction. Sometimes they'll be, they will have been good and they'll have put up the sign in the perfect place. Sometimes they put that sign right up at the traffic lights and you've got to use your common sense. Now what we're going to look at along here is the traffic lights on this setup overlap a junction at the end. So what I've had a few times in lessons, and I've had it in a driving test, nobody's ever got in trouble for it in the driving test that I've had, but yeah, you could, is when the traffic lights go green, the junction at the end, because that's within where the traffic lights are controlling, the junction, we should be able to just drive it straight out. We won't need to give way at the end. Now what sometimes happens is if you the person who you are driving behind doesn't seem to have that theory, and you drive along and they will stop at the junction. And if you're not ready for that, now yes, of course have a look. I'm not saying sort of just go out blind, but if you're not ready for that, then yeah, you might get too close to them. Same with if they weren't ready for that, for you doing that. So as we come along here, we're going to turn left at the end, and the junction at the end, because we're still not out the traffic lights, this junction, there shouldn't be any cars going either way on this road. We'll have a look, but yeah, it should be okay. So we're going to turn left, so I'm doing my mirrors and signal. I'm coming in slowly, it looks good there. This guy stops at the traffic light. I'm going to have a quick glance, but it all looks good, so off I go. So you're kind of anticipating that it's going to be okay. However, you're not just, so you're anticipating that it's going to be okay. You are going to have a look, but you're not going to, you're going to be careful that you don't just come to a complete stop, because the people behind it might not anticipate that. I'm going to loop round them all, go through it a different way, see if we've got some more things that we can look at with it. Okay, approaching the temporary traffic lights from here, they're at red, and there's parked cars on the other side of the road. Now, I don't know if there's space or not. They're going green, so it looks like I'm going to be able to get through on this occasion if they stay green. But if that was still red, I'd have to be very careful that I don't end up just stopping sort of across from that yellow car, because then, oh, here we go, it's going yellow, it's going red. So I'm not going to stop here, because if I was to stop here, then the traffic coming towards you wouldn't be able to get through. So I'm going to go a little bit closer. I'm going to go up to sort of here, and then I'm not in the way of anyone as they come through. Now if you arrived and there was already somebody in my position, so if another car arrives, then it will have to think about where it's going to stop, and it might actually have to stop. You've got a line of 3 parked cars on the right there. It might actually have to stop before all of those, so that it's not getting in the way. So yeah, they can be quite fiddly. Just try and take your time with them, and just sort of think about sort of if you're then going to be stopped at that red light when it's red for you and traffic comes towards you from the other directions, are they going to be able to get through, or are they not? And if they're not, then yeah, it's not going to work. Another thing to think about in these temporary traffic lights, especially when they go through housing estates here, are if you had somebody coming out of one of these driveways, you'll get people who don't know if it's at green or red, and sort of continuing through. Or you could have somebody, such as this guy on his bike, who is just sort of continuing through. So sort of just taking your time through any of these bits that are set up like this, because yeah, you do sometimes have other road users who could well be sort of within the sort of traffic lights who you might not be expecting. So this is going to be interesting. If it's not us next, there's now 3 vehicles behind me, or it's 3, there's 2, but it's us next. So, but the person, the third vehicle to arrive there was pretty much in line with the yellow car. So if it hadn't been green for us and the red car ahead of us here had managed to go, then yeah, it would not have been able to get through, and it just would be a complete mess. So I'm turning left. So yeah, hopefully that all makes sense, and yeah, it's not something that, obviously these temporary traffic lights just appear, they come and go. So yeah, but they're worth, if there are temporary traffic lights in an area, they're worth having a wee look at, or it would be the sort of thing that if there was temporary traffic lights around the test centre sort of at the time that you were doing your test, it'd be worth having a wee drive through them, like sort of if they were more complicated, just to get sort of, you know, a few ideas of what you might be looking out for, because that would help sort of on the day. Sometimes what you'll find though is, in regards to a driving test, and the examiner might sort of avoid them because they don't want to get stuck in them. It depends where they are. In that case, those ones are very near the test centre, so they might not have much choice in regards to being able to avoid them. But yeah, worth thinking about. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense, and yeah, hopefully there's no temporary traffic lights on the day of your test.